A lawyer calls up a plumber to come out to his house. The plumber takes a look and says, "Okay, I can fix it today and it will be $800. The lawyer raises an eyebrow and asks, "How long will it take?" The plumber responds, "Well, I need about an hour round trip to the supply house for a part, and then it should take me about an hour for the repair." The lawyer smirks and says, "2 hours for $800? That's $400 per hour. I'm a lawyer and my hourly rate is $350 an hour." The plumber nods and says, "Yes, sir, I understand. Why is it you think I gave up my law practice?" This couple goes to an agriculture show way out in the countryside on a fine Sunday afternoon and is watching the auctioning off of bulls. The guy selling the bulls announces the first bull to be auctioned off. "A fine specimen. This bull produced 60 times last year." The wife nudges her husband in the ribs and comments, "See, that more than 5 times a month." The second bull is to be sold. "Another fine specimen. This wonder reproduced 120 times last year." Again, the wife bugs her husband. "Hey, that's some 10 times a month. What do you say to that?" Her husband is getting really annoyed with this comparison. The third bull is up for sale, and this extraordinary specimen reproduced 360 times last year. The wife slaps her husband on the arm and yells, "That's once a day every day of the year. How about you?" The husband was pretty irritated by now and yelled back, "Sure, once a day, but ask the announcer if they were all with the same cow." A politician visits a rural area to gain appeal for the upcoming elections. He schedules a meeting with the local leaders to discuss problems the town has been experiencing so that he can provide help and solutions. "Governor, our town has been experiencing 2 big problems," says one of the leaders. The politician pounds his table. "Okay, tell me what they are," he impatiently replies, all the while looking around to confirm if the excessive display got a favorable response. "Oh, okay, our first problem is a flu outbreak, but we lack doctors and hospitals, and the second one is—" The politician cuts him off. "Stop right there, I'll make some calls," as the politician animatedly grabs his phone, punches the numbers, and makes his calls. Yes, that would be great tomorrow then," he loudly replies before punching another number for another call. "Yes, a hospital, I will pay for it personally." He hangs up and turns to everyone. "Good news, everyone. I have arranged for a group of doctors to come here tomorrow and check on those afflicted," he loudly proclaims. "I have also called for the immediate construction of a hospital, which would begin as soon as we are able to find a suitable area today. Now, what was your other problem?" "Yes, our second problem is that we don't have cell phone coverage here." 2 neighbors, one rich and the other poor. The poor man has a magic lamp. Every morning, he wipes the lamp and a genie comes out and says, "Ask what you want," and the poor man asks for a cup of tea. The rich neighbor, envious of the magic lamp, said to the poor, "I'll give you my car and my house in exchange for the lamp." The poor accepted the deal. The rich man wipes the lamp, and a genie comes out and says, "Ask what you want." He asked for a very big house and a better car. The genie replied, "Sorry, sir, I only serve tea and coffee." An elderly couple is in bed. After a few minutes of silence, the old man lets out a fart and says, 7 points. His wife turns to him puzzled and asks, "What in the world are you talking about?" The old man grins and says, "I'm playing fart football." A little while later, the wife lets one rip and proudly announces, "Touchdown, tie score." 5 minutes later, the old man farts again and declares, "Touchdown, I'm winning 14-7. Frustrated by losing, the wife lets out a big one and shouts, "It's a tie game now!" Feeling the pressure, the old man decides he won't lose. He strains with all his might, but instead of a fart, he accidentally poops the bed. The wife hears the noise and asks, "What was that?" The old man calmly responds, "That's the whistle for halftime. Switch sides." A lady about 8 months pregnant got on a bus and noticed the man across from her smiling. Feeling a little awkward, she moved to another seat. But the man's smile turned into a grin, so she moved again. The man seemed more amused with each move. By the 4th time she shifted, he burst out laughing. Feeling uncomfortable, she complained to the bus driver, and the man was arrested. In court, The judge asked the man to explain himself. He said, "Well, Your Honor, when she first got on the bus, I noticed her condition. She sat under a sign that said, 'The double mint twins are coming,' and I grinned. Then she moved and sat under a sign that said, 'Slogan's liniment will reduce the swelling,' and I smiled. But when she sat under a sign that said, 'William's big stick did the trick,' I could hardly contain myself. And, Your Honor, when she moved to a seat under a sign that said, 'Goodyear rubber could have prevented this accident,' I just lost it." A farmer is giving his wife some last-minute instructions before heading into town for errands. "A guy will be coming by this afternoon to inseminate one of the cows. I put a nail above the right stall so you'll know which one he needs to take care of." Satisfied that she understands, the farmer heads off. That afternoon, the inseminator arrives, and the wife leads him straight to the designated stall. "This is the cow," she says confidently. He glances at the nail and asks, "What's that for?" She shrugs. "I guess it's for you to hang your pants on." A stunning young woman stood at a crowded bus stop, rocking a tight black leather miniskirt, matching boots, and a jacket. She was turning heads left and right. When the bus pulled up, she stepped forward, but her skirt was so tight she couldn't lift her leg onto the first step. Thinking fast, she reached behind her and unzipped her skirt a little for some extra room. She tried again. Still no luck. A bit embarrassed, she unzipped a little more, and still nothing. One more zip, one more fail. Before she could try again, a big Texan behind her scooped her up by the waist and gently placed her on the bus step. Furious, she spun around and snapped, "How dare you touch me? I don't even know you." The Texan tipped his hat and drawled, "Well, ma'am, normally I'd agree, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I figured we were friends." Well, Larry is the guy who stumbles home late one night and his wife Linda is waiting at the door with her arms crossed. "Where have you been?" she demands. "Got myself a tattoo," Larry says, grinning. "A tattoo?" Linda squints. "What kind of tattoo?" $100 bill right on my... "You know," Linda gasps. "What on earth possessed you to do that? Why would a CPA get a $100 bill tattooed there?" Larry smirks. "Glad you asked. I like to watch my money grow. Sometimes I enjoy playing with my money. I love the feel of cash in my hands. And best of all, now instead of going shopping, you can stay home and spend some quality time with $100. A lady received a friend request. A few days ago, I received a friend request on Facebook from an attractive guy about 29 years old. I was curious. I wanted to know why someone that young wanted to be my Facebook friend. I accepted it. Then he started sending private messages. He was very kind. He called her beautiful. He asked my age. I'm not a liar, so I told him and reminded him I'm quite a bit senior. And I let talk a bit because, truth be told, flattery isn't all that bad. We keep talking for a while, and within a short time, he asked if we could talk about adult things. I said okay. Then he replied with a face like this. He said, "Thank you, babe, you start." So I did. I told him adult things like my hips and knees were hurting. My back acts up when it is cold outside. I explained I have crazy insomnia. I toss and turn the entire night, and that I often have leg cramps, especially when I try to sleep. I mentioned the scars from multiple surgeries and the limp I have from an old injury. And of course, I had to throw in the need for daily fiber supplements to prevent passing gas. Can't forget that one. I was waiting for him to answer me. He blocked me. He wanted to talk about things and then didn't take the heat. I think I'm just a bit too much woman for him to handle. A man hires a blonde woman to paint stripes down the center of a road, with one simple condition. She must paint at least 4 miles every day to keep her job. On the first day, she blows everyone away by painting 8 miles. Her boss is impressed. On day 2, she paints 4 miles. Not as spectacular, but still enough to meet the goal. By the 3rd day, she only manages 2 miles. The boss raises an eyebrow, thinking maybe she's just having an off day. On day 4, she paints barely 1 mile. Frustrated, the boss finally asks, "What happened? You were doing so great. Why are you slowing down?" The blonde wipes her brow and says, "Well, the further I go, the farther I get from the paint bucket." A woman was certain that her husband was cheating on her with their live-in maid, so she decided to set a trap. One day, she sent the maid to her home for the weekend and didn't tell her husband about it. That night, when she went to bed with her husband, he got up in the middle of the night with the usual excuse that he had to go to the washroom to relieve himself. The wife immediately went to the maid's bedroom, climbed onto the maid's bed, and switched off the light. Very silently, he came in, climbed on top of her, and made passionate love to her. When he finished making love to her, she said to him, "I bet you didn't expect me to be here on the maid's bed, did you?" "No, ma'am," replied the gardener. A large woman, in a sleeveless sundress, walks into a pub in Berlin. She raises her right arm, revealing a huge hairy armpit. She points to all the people sitting at the bar and asks, "What man here will buy a lady a drink?" The pub goes silent as the patrons try to ignore her. But down at the end of the bar, an old, squinty-eyed Bob slams his hand down on the bar and bellows, "Give the ballerina a drink!" The publican pours the drink and the woman chugs it down. She turns to the patrons and again points around at all of them, revealing the same hairy armpit, and asks, "What man here will buy a lady a drink?" Once again, Bob slaps his money down on the bar and says, "Give the ballerina another drink." The publican approaches the little Jimmy man and says, "Tell me, Patty, it's your own darn business if you want to buy the lady a drink, but why in tarnation do you keep calling her the ballerina?" Bob replies, "Any woman who can lift her leg that high has got to be a ballerina." One afternoon at the park, a little boy noticed two dogs going at it. Confused, he turned to his dad and asked, "What are they doing?" His dad, a little embarrassed, cleared his throat and said, They're making puppies, son." Later that night, the boy wandered into his parents' bedroom and caught them in the middle of the action. Wide-eyed, he asked, "What are you guys doing?" His dad, thinking quickly, replied, "We're making you a little brother." The boy thought for a second, then blurted out, "Gee, Dad, turn her over. I'd rather have a puppy." He performed at county fairs and would go from town to town in his old van. One day, while in the middle of nowhere, his car broke down miles away from the nearest town. He started walking to the town to see if he could get help with his car. Along the road came a farmer riding a buggy pulled by a horse. As he got close enough, the farmer said, "Hey there, where are you going?" "I'm going to the town. My car broke down and I'm trying to get some help fixing it," says the ventriloquist. "I saw the car and figured its owner would be around here somewhere," says the farmer. "Get on. I'll take you to my home as it's getting late and we're still miles away from the town. I'll take you there tomorrow." The ventriloquist gets on and they go on their way. As they ride, they start having a conversation. "I'm just a farmer. I live out here with my animals, my horse, pigs, chickens, and goat. What do you do?" asks the farmer. "I'm a veterinarian," says the ventriloquist. "I have a special gift. I can talk to animals, and that helps me understand what's wrong with them." The farmer is in disbelief. "There's no way you can talk to animals. Can you talk to my horse? What does he have to say about me?" The ventriloquist says, "Sure enough. Talk to me, horse. Let your owner hear what you have to say. What do you think about him?" The ventriloquist, using his ventriloquism, makes the horse talk. "He's a good owner, Nate. He feeds me and treats me well, bruh." The farmer is incredulous. He cannot believe what he just heard. They get to his house and immediately goes and grabs a pig. "What does this pig have to say?" asks the farmer. "My master is a good master, oink. He makes sure my mud is always fresh, oink." The farmer is in shock. As he takes the pig away, he turns around and looks at the ventriloquist and says, "Feel free to make yourself at home and talk to the animals all you want, except for the goat. She's a liar. Don't believe a thing she says." The Smiths had been struggling to have children and decided to use a surrogate father to help start their family. On the big day, Mr. Smith kissed his wife goodbye and said, "Well, I'm off. The man should be here soon." About 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Standing there was a door-to-door baby photographer hoping to make a sale. "Good morning, ma'am," he greeted cheerfully. "I've come to—" "Oh, no need to explain," Mrs. Smith interrupted, blushing. "I've been expecting you." The photographer smiled. "Well, that's great. Did you know babies are my specialty?" Well, that's what my husband and I were hoping for. Please, come in and have a seat. After a brief pause, she hesitantly asked, So, where do we start? Leave everything to me, he assured her. I usually try 2 in the bathtub, 1 on the couch, and maybe a couple on the bed. Sometimes the living room floor works best. You can really spread out there. Bathtub? A living room floor? No wonder it didn't work for Harry and me, she gasped. The photographer chuckled. Well, ma'am, none of us can guarantee a perfect shot every time. But if we try different positions and I shoot from 6 or 7 angles, I'm sure you'll be pleased with the results. My goodness, that's a lot, Mrs. Smith exclaimed. Ma'am, in my line of work, patience is key. I'd love to be in and out in 5 minutes, but I'm sure you'd be disappointed. Don't I know it? She muttered. The photographer opened his briefcase and pulled out a portfolio of baby pictures. This one was taken on top of a bus, he said. Mrs. Smith gasped. On a bus? Oh, yes, and these twins turned out beautifully, despite their mother being a bit difficult to work with. She was difficult? Very. I finally had to take her to the park. People were crowding around 4 or 5 deep just to watch. Mrs. Smith's eyes widened. 4 or 5 deep? The photographer nodded. And for over 3 hours. The mother was squealing the whole time. I could barely concentrate. When it got dark, I had to rush my shots. And then the squirrels started nibbling on my equipment, so I had to pack it up. Mrs. Smith leaned forward, shocked. You mean they actually chewed on your equipment? Oh, yes, ma'am. Happens more often than you think. Anyway, if you're ready, I'll set up my tripod and get started. Tripod? She squeaked. Oh, yes, ma'am. I need it to rest my cannon on. It's much too big to hold in my hands for long. Mrs. Smith fainted. During the wedding rehearsal, the groom approached the pastor with an unusual offer. Look, I'll give you $100 if you'll change the wedding vows when you get to the part where I'm supposed to promise to love, honor, and obey, and be faithful to her forever. I'd appreciate it if you just leave that out. He passed the minister a $100 bill and walked away, satisfied. On the day of the wedding, when it came time for the groom's vows, the pastor looked the young man in the eye and said, Will you promise to kneel before her, obey her every command and wish, serve her breakfast in bed every morning of your life, and swear eternally before God and your lovely wife that you will not ever even look at another woman as long as you both shall live? The groom gulped and looked around and said in a tiny voice, Yes, then leaned toward the pastor and hissed, I thought we had a deal. The pastor put a $100 bill into the groom's hand and whispered, She made me a better offer. Bob had long heard the stories of an amazing family tradition. It seems that his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather had all been able to walk on water on their 18th birthday. On that special day, they'd each walked across the lake to the pub on the far side for their first legal drink. So when Bob's 18th birthday came around, he and his pal Mickey took a boat out to the middle of the lake. Bob stepped out of the boat and nearly drowned. Mickey just barely managed to pull him to safety. Furious and confused, Bob went to see his grandmother. Grandma, he asked, 'tis my 18th birthday, so why can't I walk across the lake like my father, his father, and his father before him? Granny looked deeply into Bob's troubled blue eyes and said, Because your father, ye grandfather, and your great-grandfather were all born in December when the lake is frozen, and you were born in August, you fucking idiot. A housewife approached her husband with an issue with the pantry door. Hey, babe, can you check the cupboard? It keeps getting stuck. He replies, I'm not a carpenter. The next day, she lets him know about the tap. Darling, before you go, can you check the kitchen tap? It keeps leaking. He replies, I'm not a plumber. She then asks about the issue with her car. Can you at least check my car then? The light keeps coming on. The oil may need a change. I'm not a mechanic. He returns home from work and he asks her how her day was. She says it was great. The neighbor came by. He fixed everything up so you won't have to... Oh, really? Did he charge anything? No, but he gave me 2 options. Either I sleep with him or bake him a cake. He replies, Ha, so what cake did you bake him? The wife laughs, I'm not a baker. A man walks into a bar and asks the bartender, "If I show you a really good trick, will you give me a free drink?" The bartender considers it, then agrees. The man reaches into his pocket and pulls out a tiny rat. He reaches into his other pocket and pulls out a tiny piano. The rat stretches, cracks his knuckles, and proceeds to play the blues. The bartender pours the man a drink on the house, and he puts the rat and piano away. After the man finished his drink, he asked the bartender, "If I show you an even better trick, will you give me free drinks for the rest of the evening?" The bartender agrees, thinking that no trick could possibly be better than the first. The man reaches into his pockets again and pulls out the tiny rat and tiny piano. The rat stretches, cracks his knuckles, and proceeds to play the blues. The man reaches into a third pocket and pulls out a small bullfrog, who begins to sing along with the rat's music. While the man is enjoying his beverages, a stranger confronts him and offers him $10,000 for the bullfrog. "Sorry," the man replies, "he's not for sale." The stranger increases the offer to $25,000 cash up front. "No," he insists, "he's not for sale." The stranger again increases the offer, this time to $50,000 cash. The man finally agrees and turns the frog over to the stranger in exchange for the money. "Are you insane?" the bartender demanded. "That frog could have been worth millions to you, and you let him go for a mere $50,000. "Don't worry about it," the man answered. "The frog was nothing special. You see, the rat's a ventriloquist." Four older men are walking down a street. They turn a corner and see a sign that says, "Old Timers Bar, all drinks 10 cents. They look at each other and then go in, thinking this is too good to be true. The old bartender says in a voice that carries across the room, "Come on in and let me pour one for you. What'll it be, gentlemen?" There's a fully stocked bar, so each of the men orders a martini. In no time, the bartender serves up 4 iced martinis shaken, not stirred, and says, "That's 10 cents each, please." The 4 guys stare at the bartender for a moment, then at each other. They can't believe their good luck. They pay the 40 cents, finish their martinis, and order another round. Again, 4 excellent martinis are produced, with the bartender again saying, "That's 40 cents, please." They pay 40 cents, but their curiosity gets the better of them. They've each had 2 martinis and haven't even spent $1 yet. Finally, one of them says, "How can you afford to serve martinis as good as these for $0.10 apiece?" "I'm a retired tailor from Phoenix," the bartender says, "and I always wanted to own a bar. Last year, I hit the lottery jackpot for $125 million and decided to open this place. Every drink costs $0.10. Wine, liquor, beer, it's all the same." "Wow, that's some story," one of the men says. As the 4 of them sip their martinis, they can't help noticing 7 other people at the end of the bar who don't have any drinks in front of them and haven't ordered anything the whole time they've been there. Nodding at the 7 at the end of the bar, one of the men asks the bartender, "What's with them?" The bartender says, "They're retired people from Florida. They're waiting for happy hour when drinks are half price." A mother is invited by her son Dave for dinner. He lives with a female roommate, Tina. During the course of the meal, his mother couldn't help but notice how pretty Tina is. Over the course of the evening, while watching the two interact, she started to wonder if there was more between Dave and his roommate than met the eye. Reading his mom's thoughts, Dave volunteered, "I know what you must be thinking, but I assure you, Tina and I are just roommates." About a week later, Tina came to Dave saying, "Ever since your mother came to dinner, I've been unable to find the silver sugar bowl. You don't suppose she took it, do you?" "Well, I doubt it, but I'll email her just to be sure," said Dave. So he sat down and wrote an email. "Dear Mom, I'm not saying that you did take the sugar bowl from my house. I'm not saying that you did not take it. But the fact remains that it has been missing ever since you were here for dinner. Love, Dave." Several days later, Dave received a response email from his mother, which read, "Dear son, I'm not saying that you do sleep with Tina, and I'm not saying that you do not sleep with her, but the fact remains that if she was sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the sugar bowl by now." A woman awakes during the night to find that her husband is not in bed. She puts on her robe and goes downstairs to look for him. She finds him sitting at the kitchen table with a hot cup of coffee in front of him. He appears to be in deep thought, just staring at the wall. She watches as he wipes a tear from his eye and takes a sip of his coffee. "What's the matter, dear?" she whispers as she steps into the room. "Why are you down here at this time of night?" The husband looks up from his coffee. "It's the 20th anniversary of the day we met." She can't believe he has remembered and starts to tear up. The husband continues, "Do you remember 20 years ago when we started dating? I was 18 and you were only 16. He says solemnly. Once again the wife is touched to tears. "Yes, I do," she replies. The husband pauses. The words were not coming easily. "Do you remember when your father caught us in the back seat of my car?" "Yes, I remember," said the wife, lowering herself into the chair beside him. The husband continued. "Do you remember when he shoved the shotgun in my face and said, 'Either you marry my daughter, or I will send you to prison for 20 years. "I remember that too," she replied softly. He wiped another tear from his cheek and said, "I would have gotten out today." A young widow goes to the funeral parlor to plan her husband's funeral. She met with the mortician, who asked her how she wants the body dressed. "He always looked so good in blue. I want him to be buried in a blue suit." This posed a problem, as he had been delivered to the funeral parlor in the black suit he was wearing when he died. However, the wife was adamant. "I don't care what it costs," she said, handing the mortician a blank check. "Do whatever it takes." The mortician agrees, and the next day calls the widow back. When she arrived, the mortician revealed her husband in a very sharp blue suit. The wife is very pleased. "Thank you so much. This is perfect. Whatever it cost, it was worth it." The mortician handed her back the blank check. "There is no charge, madam," he said. "I don't understand," the widow said. "How did you manage this for free?" "Well, shortly after you left yesterday, another gentleman was delivered. He was similar in size and build to your husband, and he was wearing a blue suit. I asked his next of kin if they would object to him being buried in a black suit instead of the blue one, and they said they didn't care." "So you undressed them and swapped the suits?" the widow said. "That must have been difficult." "Oh, no," said the mortician. "I just swapped the heads." A man is at the checkout line of a supermarket when he realizes he forgot to buy condoms. When his turn arrives, he looks at the cashier and asks, "I'm sorry, I forgot to buy condoms. Can you ask someone to bring me a packet?" "That's fine," she tells him. "What size do you need?" He's not sure, so the pharmacist asks him to drop his pants, has a little feel around that area, and then speaks into the microphone, "Packet of medium condoms to cashier 4, please." The person behind him is a jock, and whilst he doesn't need condoms, he's curious as to how he shapes up. So when it's his turn, he says the same thing. "I'm sorry, I forgot to buy condoms. Can you ask someone to bring me a packet?" Just as before, she asks him to drop his pants, has a feel around, then speaks into the microphone. "Packet of extra-large condoms to cashier 4, please." The next person in the queue is the ugliest person you can imagine, and he's quite interested in the whole thing. When he arrives, he goes, "I also forgot to buy condoms. I don't know my size," and pulls his pants down. The cashier has a little feel around that area, then speaks into the microphone, "Mop and bucket to cashier 4, please." A doctor, a priest, and an engineer go golfing. After only a few rounds, they get caught behind the worst group of golfers they've ever seen. After growing impatient from waiting for them to finish their holes, they go into the clubhouse to complain. "Let me explain," says the manager. "You see, those men all used to be firefighters, some of the best our city has ever seen. There was a fire here at the clubhouse about 5 years ago. Those heroic men saved our clubhouse from the fire. However, most unfortunately, they all lost their sight in the terrible fire. Since then, they are welcome to use our facilities for life. It's the very least we could do." The priest looks forlorn and says, "I'm so sorry to hear it. I will hold a prayer service this Sunday dedicated to these men." The doctor says, "What an awful thing. I know a highly regarded optometrist who has done some research that might be able to help them. I'll arrange for them to meet as soon as I can. The engineer thinks for a moment and says, why can't they golf at night?